The Prodigy is a simple chironomid pupa that good friend Taylor Brune, who frequents Pyramid Lake a lot, has used to deadly effect for those huge cutthroat you can find there. But let me tell you, it also works pretty well on other still waters too. So thanks, Taylor, for this great pattern. Let me show you how I tie it. So let's tie the Prodigy Pupa. Into the jaws of my vise, I've got a Daiichi 1120 size 10. Onto the hook, I slid a 7/64 or 2.8 millimeter slotted tungsten bead. And when I secure this in, I want to make sure that the slot of the bead here is actually pointing straight up. And then we're going to get our tying thread, which is red Semperfli 8/0. Now some of you may be wondering, why are we using a slotted bead? Well, where Taylor fishes this fly on Pyramid Lake in Nevada, it's pretty windy. So a slotted tungsten bead actually has more mass than a standard tungsten bead because less of the material has been drilled out. So he gets that little added bonus of a little bit more sink. And I'm winding the thread back until that thread comes off the shank on about a 45-degree angle to the point. And that's got our basic wrap down, so we've got some traction for our materials. And then I'm just going to advance the tying thread back up to the rear of the bead and build a little bit of a thread dam. Not too much, but I just want to try and make sure that that slot is staying on the top of the shank. We'll get it totally secured. Now I'm going to secure my ribbing in, which is small wire. Amber is the color. So we're just going to take that on the side of the hook closest to us, what I refer to as the near side. And we're going to secure that down the shank. And I'm pulling on the wire towards me. And what that does is, as the thread hits the wire, it slides down that little ramp and you get your thread wraps adjacent to each other. And what we're trying to do here is make a nice, neat, slender body that's representative of a natural chironomid pupa. And of course, when I mention those windy conditions as well, the more slender the fly is, that also adds to the sink rate. It cuts through the water quicker. For the body, we're using black holographic Mylar, size small. You could also use large. I think Taylor uses large, but I had some small on hand. I like the small just because I have better control for it. I'm just going to tie in the holographic Mylar on top of the shank with just a little stub. Make sure that's secured in there. Bring my thread forward. Close touching turns just to make sure everything's nice and smooth. And then I'm also going to stop for a second. Give that bobbin a counterclockwise spin. That takes the twist out of it. This classic wax thread lays beautiful flat wraps. And I'm just going to keep winding forward, and every once in a while I'll stop and take the twist out, because every time we wrap the bobbin, or the thread rather, over the shank and around the shank, we put twist in it. So this spinning counterclockwise gives you nice flat wraps and really helps you build up the body taper, which is what we're going to do next. So we're going to get all the way back up to the rear of that bead, give this bobbin a spin, and I'm going to go back slightly just to build up a little taper in the forward third of the fly. And this taper is always, I don't really have a formula for it. I just sort of get an eyeball for what I like, because the thickness of my body material, in this case Mylar, has an impact on it too. It's thinner material. I can build up a little more taper, whereas if I was using a material like Scudback or Stretch Flex, it's thicker. I would build less of a taper because I've got to factor in the thickness of that body material, and I don't want it to negatively impact the overall look or proportions of the fly. So to add some durability, I'm going to take a little bit of brushable super glue and just put a little coat on those thread wraps, and that's going to bond the body material to the thread underbody and add some durability. And of course, when I couple that with the final body coating, I've got the material sandwiched on both sides with a protective coat. So I'm just going to take our black holographic Mylar now, and I'm just going to wind the body forward, one turn right adjacent to the other. You can overlap it slightly if you want. Again, the goal is to try and keep this body as thin as you can. So we're just going to wind that forward. Good firm wraps. No space, no red showing through. Right up to the rear of the bead. I'm going to pass that bobbin over a couple of times directly behind. And then I'm going to throw a couple of wraps in front just to lock it. And then I'm going to come in and just with the tips of these Dr. Slicks and nip that away. And you can throw maybe another wrap on there if you want for added security. We're going to cover it up with a thread thorax anyway. Now I'm going to take my ribbing material. I'm going to put one complete wrap right at the base of the body. I can take my fingernail and just push that up to make sure it's tight. And then I'm just going to wind this forward with open turns. The goal is to get 7 body segments if possible, but just get into a rhythm of nice, open, even wraps. Because if fish can count, which I don't think they can, I don't think they see that kind of detail, and if they could count body segments, my question always is, how the heck do they miss that hook point all the time? So we've got that ribbing tied off, and just like the body material, 2 over the top, 2 in front. Place the thumbnail on the tie-off area, pull and twist until that wire breaks away. And then we're going to give the bobbin a counterclockwise spin to flatten the wraps. And now we're just going to build up a neat little thread thorax that extends no further back than probably half the length of the bead. And just continue to spin and flatten. And when you're building a thread thorax up, always do it gradually. Don't make too steep a climb up to the rear of the bead, because when you go to whip finish at the end, it could all tumble back down on itself because it's just too steep. So I like the look of that. Again, I'm going to give that a spin, flatten those wraps, come in and 3 to 5 turn whips finish. So I'll do 4, maybe 5. Don't overdo it because we're going to coat all of this. So just get that snugged tight, like so, and then trim. And then for our final body coating, we're going to use some Solara's Bone Dry. Very thin viscosity on this, so it lays nice and thin, but it's not thin enough that it runs all over the place. So I have nice control, and like painting a wall, if you want to do multiple coats, just do multiple thin coats. Don't put it on like pancake syrup. So we just get that in place. I'm happy with that. And we're going to come in with our UV light and just give this a cure. I'm just going to move the light around so I don't impact the focus on the camera here. And that's all cured up. And there you have it, the completed Prodigy Pupa. Great on Pyramid Lake and probably on your local lakes too.